connection with Peel Street goes back to the days when I was a little girl, and we lived exactly a block away from Peel Street, and I would then, for Mother, go round to the shop. It was the closest for perhaps extra milk or cream, whatever came up that she wanted, I'd go round for it. Most of us children would gather around somewhere around that area because with a milk bar there was lollies and they were the sort of things that we did in those days. About the end of the war. This is your favourite.
Our connection to Peel Street is my great-grandmother owned the house early 1920s. My auntie's, who's in her late 80s, she was born in the front bedroom of the house. My great-grandmother moved out. My parents bought the house in 1943, lived there. I was born in 1958. I lived there till I was married, and my mother moved out only about 6 years ago. Yeah, it's a long history of Peel Street. As a young girl, what I can remember is the whole street, it was just alive with us kids all about the same age. Ride our bikes up and down Peel Street singing a little song. The boys in the street, their homemade billy carts. The milk bars, the barber shop down the corner. If Dad went missing, you'd know where to find him. He'd be down at the barber shop talking. Buying our fireworks from the corner milk bar. The ice creams, everything. The fireworks on the bottom, yes. Lollies on the top. And this it was so alive with the kids, but yeah, you could do anything.
When you opened the door to go into the shop, the bell would ring, ding. And that was quite common in a lot of those little shops along there.
The local community were exceptionally concerned about Peel Street in particular because there had been a number of developers and others calling for the demolition of these particular buildings. And then there was those that remembered great pieces of history relating to that whole streetscape that wanted to preserve that particular area. So we had a lot of conversation that was conflicting. The condition of the site was certainly quickly falling into that state of disrepair. They were not being looked after, not being activated, and the longer you leave a building without activation, the worse its condition becomes. We were certainly seeing this happen very quickly, and even through the last 4 years, through that period of time, the degree of dilapidation was really quite obvious, and it was important that we found someone that understood the importance of the history of these buildings, the importance and the connection to the local community, and also that understood how we could keep these buildings still with an opportunity to develop for the future.
I think the most important aspect of developing in a heritage area is to appreciate the social cohesion that the site can bring back to the area. It's not about getting each of the dwellings back to what they originally were. That's not what it's about. And I think that's where the misconception is, that's where the fear is from developers. It's about renovating what's there where you need to in the existing dwelling. So it's combining the new and the old, but retaining the old in as best format as you possibly can. It's retaining memories that people thought may be lost. It's training young apprentices in a bygone craft of renovating very old homes. It's providing new housing, desperately needed new housing for new families to generate their own stories. And of course it provides local tradespeople with employment.
My connection to Peel Street is through my great-great-grandfather James Hames. When James Hames settled permanently in Ballarat in 1867, he commenced to build a bakery and a shop and dwelling on the corner of Peel Street and Hames Crescent. But like many early arrivals in Australia, and especially in the Ballarat region, he also was a gold miner at times and combined his baking activities with gold mining. He worked there right until he died in 1923, so it was a long period of time from around 1867 to 1923. James would have found things tough to begin with, like everybody, but certainly once his baking started, he seemed to have done rather well. And I think this is evidenced by his obituary, which is quite extensive in the Ballarat Star and Courier, listing the number of mourners that accompanied the body of James to the Ballarat Cemetery. Most of the notables, all of the sporting teams, both Roman Catholic and Anglican clergy, a great number of tradesmen, well-known people, some families still today in Ballarat attended that funeral, so he clearly done quite well. I've been looking at the Peel Street shops, I guess, over the last 10 years, and it's been a very sad experience to see them gradually deteriorating over time. The veranda disappearing from the Hames Bakery, one of the buildings being burnt down, others vandalised, so it was sad. And then all of a sudden we found out about the new redevelopment, and gee, I was over the moon. We're really pleased with what's happening. The project seems to be very sympathetic. It's great to see the shops are actually being restored and folk are going to live in them, or other activities will occur, and the buildings behind, the residences behind, seem to be done in a sympathetic manner. And I think it looks a jolly good project. I think understanding about history and understanding about ancestry, which is part of history, and especially your own ancestry, is a really important important part of your identity. And if you don't know about the past, including your own family's past, you can't operate in the present or the future. And when you can find a tangible thing like a house, a dwelling, or a monument, best a house and a bakery, well, what more could you ask for?